Introduce our speaker of the evening, Jordan. What if tomorrow, when you pulled up to the gas pump, it cost 30 cents more per gallon to fuel your car? Yikes. How would it make you feel? Tonight, Jordan will discuss a topic that was recently in the news, a carbon tax in Washington State. He will give us his opinion about why he thinks it may or may not work. I welcome Jordan.
In January, during his State of the State address, Governor Inslee presented a proposal for a carbon tax in Washington State. Now, this would have been the first time in a U.S. state where money would be collected to offset pollution generated by the burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas. Tonight, I'm going to tell you, earlier this month, the bill was up for a vote, but they shelved it because there was insufficient support in the House and Senate. Tonight, I'd like to tell you about what it means to tax carbon and why I think it's a bad idea and one that won't have an effect on global climate change. I'd like to persuade you to feel the same. First, a common understanding. A lot of terms get thrown around, and I just want us all to understand what they mean. We've got global climate change, global warming, greenhouse effect, and greenhouse gases. Global climate change and global warming are generally synonymous. The Earth's climate goes through natural fluctuations that go from ice ages to warmer periods, and that's called climate change. Within the last 100 years, we've seen an increase in Earth's temperatures that seem unusual, and we've called that global warming. The greenhouse effect is when the sun's energy comes into our atmosphere and warms it up, turns it into heat, and traps it. Much like parking your car in a parking lot on a sunny day. Even if it's super cold outside, the interior temperature is a lot warmer. And the greenhouse gases are what acts as the windshield and the windows of your car. They're what trap that energy. And so without those, if we had no greenhouse gases and no greenhouse effect, the Earth would be a frozen wasteland. So all good things. The general theory of climate change is that, or global warming, is that over the last 100 years, since the Industrial Revolution, we've had so much carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, put into the atmosphere that it's increased the effect of global warming and created a situation where we need to make some changes to our behaviors. Climate scientists warn that if we don't do anything to change greenhouse gas emissions, there'll be some debilitating environmental catastrophes that'll happen, namely sea level rise, which will displace coastal cities and towns, and impacts to global food supplies based on changing weather patterns and ocean conditions. So understanding that there's some pretty great concerns at risk, one of the solutions is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that's put into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels, namely oil as gasoline and diesel. One idea, essentially what that means is getting you and I out of our cars. So one idea to do that is to put a tax on burning oil as diesel and gasoline. And this is where a carbon tax comes into play. The general premise is that by taxing something, you get less of it because you've made it more expensive. So in theory, a tax on gasoline would get you to drive less because you would have to make the decision, do I want to drive to the store if it costs this much, or do I want to walk? And And what they think is going to happen is that we're all going to say, yeah, I'll probably walk. And so I'll drive less and I'll produce less carbon dioxide. And that'll be good for the climate. And this general model is celebrated success in British Columbia, where they've had a tax on carbon since 2008. In Washington, the proposal that was recently rejected was to put a $30 per ton carbon dioxide tax on the production and burning of that fuel. And that was going to be stepwise up until 2030. But let's look at the end product in 2030. So what does $30 per ton mean? First, it means if there's 2,000, okay, 1 gallon of gasoline burned equals 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. If there's 2,000 pounds in a ton, and the rate is $3 a ton, that math equals out to 1.5 cents per gallon, or if it's 20 pounds, 30 cents per gallon at the pump. My Subaru gets about 24 miles to the gallon, and I drive about 1,000 miles a month. So that's 42 gallons that I would end up paying taxes on, which comes out to about $12.50, or $150 a year. Now, my monthly budget is pretty tight, but I can probably find a way to squeeze 12 bucks out of it. And that would be great if that was the only cost that was associated with it. The indirect costs are that everything that you and I need comes in a system of transportation that depends on fossil fuels. No matter if you need bananas, new shoes, something from Amazon, it's going to get moved around by cars, trucks, planes, trains, all of which create carbon dioxide. So in the long term, the changes to the transportation system are going to be minor, and the amount of carbon dioxide put into the atmosphere is going to remain pretty much the same. Meanwhile, you and I will all be paying this 30 cents a gallon tax, and sorry. So we pay the tax, and emissions don't change meaningfully. So in the long term, when we look at Washington State in the future, we get a situation where we all have less money in our pockets to make purchasing decisions, and we haven't met the goal or the intent of the tax. Thank you.